Welcome everyone to Meld. It's February 22nd, 2017, and AMD, the semiconductor company that had largely been written off by PC enthusiasts for years, had a surprise that no one saw coming. They launched a series of processors that turned the industry on its head, making the then current crop of quote enthusiast CPUs feel like the definition of the word ripoff. This sent Intel in a panic mode and led to some of the most confusing and obviously rushed releases we've ever seen. Ryzen was simply unbelievable for the price. Hell, in general, a $300 CPU that could beat a $1,000 Intel chip? Wow. Fast forward to 2019 and Intel has changed their lineup more in the past 2 years than the decade preceding it, proving that competition is an incredible motivator. So now that Intel has stepped up their game and we're awaiting AMD's 3rd generation Ryzen CPUs, is their 1st gen still worth it today? Absolutely, and no. Let's discuss. As with any PC purchase, the question you want to ask is what you plan to do with your new PC. Obviously this is Meld, so many of you will say gaming, but do you just game or do you make videos, 3D model, etc.? The suggestion is heavily based on your answer. If it's only game, believe it or not, there's a second question. What are you getting? If you say anything other than a mid to high-end card like Vega 56, 1070, 1080, etc., it probably doesn't matter what CPU you get because you'll likely be GPU bottlenecked. The same goes for when you play higher resolutions like 4K on even a higher-end GPU. Simply put, most modern CPUs end up waiting around for the graphics card to finish throwing all those pixels up, so in many cases there's no difference in FPS for any modern CPU. Now, if you're getting a high-end GPU and you want to play at those higher frames, like over 100 FPS, etc., then you want a higher-end CPU. And this mostly goes for any build. It's best to get roughly similar range parts across the board. Now, if you plan on doing some professional work, believe it or not, it isn't always Ryzen that wins. Simply put, Intel and AMD's architecture are so different that Intel wins at some while AMD beats them at others. It really just depends. So look at benchmarks for your specific scenario to determine the CPU manufacturer with the best bang for your buck. With that said, this isn't a competition between strictly AMD and Intel, it's just AMD's 1st gen Ryzen, which a couple in particular are at a great price point right now. You can actually get the 8-core 16-thread Ryzen 7 1700 that's overclockable for $170. That's nearly unbelievable. And once overclocked, it still handles beautifully in games as well as multi-core workloads, and I'd mostly suggest the 1700 over the X model since it isn't really worth the price difference unless you won't overclock. Oh, and the 1800X is simply not worth it at all. Moving on to Ryzen 5 is the 1600 and 1600X, both of which cost exactly the same and only $10 less than the 1700, so I'd definitely suggest the 1700 once again. When it comes to around the $130 price range, you can pick up a Ryzen 5 1400, but depending on what you want, you may prefer the i3 8100. Finally, the Ryzen 3 CPUs aren't priced very well at all, and you'd be much better off getting their APUs for the price. All in all, you can see what CPUs AMD has kept updated price-wise, and their best-selling 1700 and 1700X are two fantastic buys even today, with a couple others that can do well depending on whether you can get them at a good price. And don't forget, while it's only 1st gen, whatever motherboard you buy should work well with their 2nd and 3rd generation CPUs. So while that does it for today, what's your favorite 1st gen Ryzen CPU? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, definitely make sure to subscribe. And as always, have a great day.